The ship appeared without warning. One moment, the sky above Earth held nothing but clouds and the distant lights of orbital stations. The next moment, something vast blocked out the sun. People on 6 continents stopped what they were doing and looked up. They saw a shape that did not belong to humanity. It stretched across the horizon like a floating mountain, dark and ancient and terrifying. In Geneva, Chancellor Ilara Vasquez received the emergency call while eating breakfast with her daughter. Her coffee cup froze halfway to her lips as her aide spoke the words that would change human history forever. "Madam Chancellor, we have first contact. They're already here." She kissed her daughter goodbye and did not know if she would ever see her again. The United Nations Hall had been rebuilt after the resource wars of the previous century. Its walls were made of glass and steel, designed to show transparency and openness. Now those glass walls showed something else entirely. Through them, everyone in the building could see the massive alien vessel hovering in the clouds above the city. Chancellor Vasquez walked into the main chamber and found chaos. Representatives from every nation on Earth were shouting, crying, or praying. Some demanded immediate military response. Others wanted to surrender before a single shot was fired. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what was happening. "Quiet," Vasquez said. Her voice was not loud, but something in it made people stop and listen. "We will face this together, or we will fall apart. There is no middle ground. Now, someone tell me what we know." General Thomas Hardy stepped forward. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. "The vessel is approximately 12 kilometers long. Our satellites detected it emerging from some kind of fold in space about 2 hours ago. It made no attempt to hide. It simply appeared and moved into position above Geneva." "Have they made contact?" "Yes, ma'am. They sent a message in perfect English, French, Mandarin, and 17 other languages. They said their representative would arrive at noon to deliver what they called the standard greeting for new species." Vasquez looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:45. "Then we don't have much time. Clear the chamber of non-essential personnel. I want only senior representatives and military advisors present." "And General Hardy?" "Yes, ma'am. Have our forces stand down. Whatever happens next, I don't want some nervous soldier starting an interstellar war." The alien arrived exactly at noon. He did not walk through the doors. Instead, he simply appeared in the center of the chamber, materialized out of thin air in a shimmer of blue light. Several guards raised their weapons, but Vasquez waved them down with a sharp gesture. The alien was tall, perhaps 7 feet, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. He had 4 arms and eyes that seemed to look in multiple directions at once. He wore robes of deep purple that moved on their own, as if alive. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere and nowhere, filling the chamber like water filling a glass. "I am High Ambassador Velthorax of the Galactic Sovereignty Council. I speak for the 743 species who have submitted to the Council's protection. I come to deliver the standard greeting and the standard offer." Vasquez stood alone before him. Her advisors wanted to stand with her, but she had insisted on facing this moment herself. If humanity was going to meet its first alien, it would do so through a single voice. "I am Chancellor Ilara Vasquez. I speak for the United Nations of Earth and the human colonies across 17 star systems. We welcome you to our world, and hope this meeting will lead to friendship between our peoples." Velthorax made a sound that might have been laughter. It was not a pleasant sound. Friendship. How quaint. "You misunderstand the nature of this meeting, Chancellor. The Galactic Sovereignty Council does not seek friendship. We seek order. For 12,000 years, we have maintained peace across this galaxy by bringing new species under our protection. In exchange for this protection, these species pay tribute." "Tribute," Vasquez repeated. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. "Resources, technology, soldiers for our peacekeeping forces. Each species contributes according to their abilities. It is a simple arrangement. Those who accept our protection thrive under our guidance. Those who refuse." Velthorax paused, and his shifting skin seemed to darken. "There have been very few refusals. The ones who refused no longer exist." A murmur ran through the chamber. Fear, anger, disbelief, all of it mixed together in the voices of humanity's leaders. General Hardy stepped forward, unable to contain himself. "Is this a threat? You come to our world and threaten us with extinction?" "It is not a threat, General. It is simply the truth. The Council commands a fleet of 4 million warships. We have conquered species that controlled entire galactic arms. Your 17 star systems are insignificant. Your 300 warships are less than insignificant. You have no power to resist, so resistance would be foolish. Therefore, you will not resist. You will accept our protection, pay your tribute, and your species will continue to exist. This is the way of things. Vasquez felt the weight of every eye in the room on her back. She felt the weight of 8 billion people on Earth, and another 4 billion scattered across the colonies. She felt the weight of every human who had ever lived, every struggle they had survived, every tyrant they had overthrown. Her grandmother had told her stories about the old days, stories about people who had nothing but refused to surrender everything, stories about resistance movements that fought against impossible odds, stories about a species that had clawed its way up from caves to the stars through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. What exactly would this tribute require? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Velthorax waved one of his 4 hands, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. Numbers and charts floated in the light, showing exactly what the Council expected. 40% of your refined metals and rare earth elements, 20% of your agricultural output, all research related to weapons technology, propulsion systems, and artificial intelligence, and a conscription of 500,000 young adults per cycle for service in the Council's peacekeeping forces. The numbers were devastating. 40% of their metals would shut down half the orbital construction projects. 20% of their food would mean rationing across the colonies. Surrendering their weapons research would leave them helpless forever. And 500,000 young people taken away each cycle, sent to fight and die in wars that had nothing to do with humanity, was simply unthinkable. These terms would cripple us, Vasquez said. They would ensure your compliance. A species that cannot feed itself or arm itself is a species that does not cause problems. You will adapt. You will survive. This is more than most species are offered. Around the chamber, humanity's leaders whispered among themselves. Vasquez could hear the fear in their voices. She could hear the calculations being made, the surrender already forming in their minds. They were looking at the numbers, 4 million warships versus 300, and seeing no path forward except submission. But Vasquez was looking at something else. She was looking at the alien's eyes. Velthorax believed every word he was saying. He truly thought humanity would simply accept this fate. He looked at humans the way a farmer looks at cattle. Useful, perhaps, but fundamentally beneath consideration. He had no idea who he was talking to. "Hi, Ambassador," Vasquez said. "I would like to ask you a question before I give my response." Velthorax tilted his head, a gesture that seemed almost human. "You may ask. In your 12,000 years of bringing new species under your protection, has any species ever said no? As I mentioned, there have been very few refusals. Those species were eliminated. Their worlds were cleansed and repopulated with compliant populations. Their names were erased from history. Within a generation, it was as if they had never existed." "I see." Vasquez nodded slowly. "And did any of those species fight back?" "Some attempted resistance. It was futile, of course. They were primitive, disorganized, unable to comprehend the forces arrayed against them. They died quickly. So you've never actually faced a species that truly resisted, one that refused to stop fighting no matter what you did to them." Velthorax's colors shifted, a pattern Vasquez was beginning to recognize as confusion. "What you describe is impossible. No rational species would choose extinction over submission. The mathematics are simple. Resistance equals death. Submission equals survival. Every intelligent being understands this." Vasquez smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Hi, Ambassador. Let me tell you something about humanity. We have been fighting since before we could speak. We fought each other over food, over land, over ideas. We built empires and tore them down. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet, and we came within minutes of using them on ourselves. We are not rational. We are not sensible. We are stubborn, violent, and absolutely unwilling to be told what to do." She stepped closer to the alien, close enough to see her own reflection in his shifting skin. "You come to our world and demand tribute. You threaten us with extinction if we refuse, and you expect us to kneel because the numbers say we should." She shook her head. "You don't know us at all." Velthorax's colors shifted again, this time to something darker. "Chancellor, I advise you to consider your next words very carefully. The fate of your entire species hangs in the balance. I have considered them. I've been considering them since you appeared in our sky. I've been thinking about my daughter, who is 12 years old. I've been thinking about whether I want her to grow up as a free person or as a resource to be harvested by strangers from the stars. I've been thinking about what I would tell my grandmother if she were still alive. She turned to face the chamber, to face the representatives of every nation on Earth. They were afraid. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also watching her, waiting to see what she would do, waiting for someone to show them the way. My grandmother survived the occupation of her country when she was a child, Vasquez said. The enemy had more soldiers, more weapons, more everything. Everyone said resistance was impossible. Everyone said they should just accept their fate. But my grandmother and millions like her refused. They fought with whatever they had, kitchen knives, farming tools, their bare hands if necessary, and eventually, against all odds, they won. She turned back to Velthorax. That's who we are, High Ambassador. We are the descendants of people who were told they couldn't win and fought anyway. We are the children of revolutions and rebellions and impossible victories. We don't do the rational thing. We do the human thing. And the human thing is to tell anyone who demands our submission to go straight to hell. The chamber was silent. Absolutely silent. Everyone was holding their breath. Velthorax's voice, when it came, was colder than space itself. You are making a grave mistake, Chancellor. The Council will not negotiate. The Council will not compromise. If you refuse our offer, we will return with a fleet large enough to turn your planet into a dead rock. Your species will be erased from existence. This is not a threat. It is a promise. Then that's a promise you'll have to keep, Vasquez said. Because my answer is no. Humanity will not pay tribute. Humanity will not surrender its children to your wars. Humanity will not kneel. She raised her chin and spoke 3 words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. We respectfully decline. Velthorax stared at her for a long moment. His skin cycled through colors she had never seen before, colors that might have been rage, or confusion, or something else entirely. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. You have 90 standard cycles to reconsider. When that time expires, the punitive fleet will arrive. They will give you one final chance to accept the Council's offer. If you refuse again, they will begin the cleansing. I suggest you use this time to make peace with whatever gods you worship. He vanished in the same shimmer of blue light that had brought him. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives were shouting, crying, demanding explanations. But Vasquez stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the spot where the alien had been standing. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, could feel the sweat on her palms, could feel the terror that she had kept hidden behind her calm mask. But she could also feel something else, something that burned in her chest like a flame, pride. General Hardy appeared at her side. Madam Chancellor, with respect, do you understand what you've just done? You've condemned us to war with an enemy we cannot possibly defeat. Vasquez turned to look at him. General, I've condemned us to fight for our survival instead of surrendering it without a struggle. There's a difference. The difference is that we'll all be dead either way. Maybe. Probably even. But we'll be dead as free people who chose to resist, not as slaves who chose to submit. And who knows? She looked out the window at the alien ship still hovering in the clouds. Stranger things have happened. Maybe we'll surprise them. How? We have 300 ships. They have millions. Vasquez smiled, and this time there was real warmth in it. General, humanity has spent its entire existence figuring out how to kill things bigger and stronger than itself. We hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. We conquered continents with sailing ships and muskets. We split the atom and reached the stars. We are very, very good at finding ways to fight. She put her hand on his shoulder. We have 90 cycles. Let's get to work. As Chancellor Vasquez walked out of the chamber, her advisors scrambling to keep up with her, she allowed herself one moment of doubt. One moment to wonder if she had just killed everyone she loved. One moment to feel the weight of what she had done. Then she pushed it aside and started planning. The galaxy had just demanded humanity's submission. Humanity had just refused. Now they would find out which choice was the right one. In his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel, High Ambassador Velthorax filed his report to the Council. He described the meeting in detail, including the Chancellor's unexpected response. His recommendation was simple. Deploy the punitive fleet immediately. These humans were clearly unstable and needed to be dealt with before they could cause trouble. He ended his report with a personal observation. The human leader displayed irrational confidence despite overwhelming evidence that resistance is futile. This is consistent with psychological profiles of primitive species that have not yet learned their place in the galactic order. I expect their defiance will collapse once they see the true scale of council power. They will beg for the terms we offered today. He was wrong. But he would not learn just how wrong until the first human missile tore through his ship's hull, and by then it would be far too late to reconsider his assessment of humanity's willingness to fight. The war for humanity's soul had begun, and humanity had chosen to resist at all costs. The 90 cycles began with panic. Across Earth and all 17 human colonies, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity had refused the Galactic Sovereignty Council. The aliens were coming. The end was near. Some people rioted. Others prayed. Many simply went home to hold their families and wait for death. The stock markets crashed. Governments fell. For the first 3 days, it seemed like human civilization might tear itself apart before the aliens even arrived. Then something changed. It started small. A factory worker in Detroit who refused to stop working. A farmer in Brazil who planted extra crops instead of abandoning his fields. A scientist in Tokyo who stayed at her laboratory through the night, searching for any advantage that might help. One by one, people stopped panicking and started preparing. Chancellor Vasquez watched this transformation from her command center beneath the Swiss Alps. The bunker had been built during the resource wars, and then abandoned. Now it hummed with activity. Screens covered every wall, showing feeds from across human space. Officers ran back and forth, carrying reports and orders. The smell of coffee and fear filled the air. "They're not running," said General Thomas Hardy, standing beside her. There was wonder in his voice. "I expected chaos. I expected complete breakdown. But they're organizing. Did you think we would simply give up?" Vasquez asked. "Honestly? Yes, the odds are impossible. Any rational analysis says we're going to die." Vasquez smiled. "Fortunately, humans are terrible at rational analysis. We're much better at irrational hope." On the fortress station Gibraltar, which orbited Mars, Admiral Marcus Chen took command of humanity's combined fleet. The station was the largest structure humans had ever built in space, a massive ring of metal and fire that served as the primary shipyard for the outer colonies. Now it would become the heart of humanity's resistance. Chen was 62 years old. He had spent 40 of those years in the military, rising through the ranks during the small conflicts that still occasionally flared between colony worlds. He had never commanded anything larger than a patrol fleet. Now he was responsible for defending an entire species. The weight of it should have crushed him. Instead, it focused him. "Show me what we have," he said to his command staff on his first day aboard Gibraltar. The numbers appeared on the main display. 312 combat-capable vessels, ranging from heavy cruisers to fast attack corvettes. 200 civilian ships that could be converted to military use. Approximately 40,000 trained naval personnel, and another 100,000 volunteers with no experience at all. Against this stood the Council's punitive fleet. An estimated 5,000 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. And that was just the first wave. The full Council armada numbered in the millions. "It's not enough," said Captain Sarah Okonjo, Chen's second in command. "Even if we fought perfectly, even if we destroyed 10 of their ships for every one of ours, we would still lose. Then we won't fight them ship to ship," Chen replied. "We'll fight them our way." He pulled up historical records from Earth battles where smaller forces had defeated larger ones through superior tactics, technology, or simple stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The Battle of Thermopylae, the American Revolution, the Vietnamese resistance against multiple empires, the partisan movements of the world wars. Humanity has faced impossible odds before, he told his staff. We didn't win by being stronger. We won by being smarter, faster, and more willing to sacrifice than our enemies expected. That's how we'll fight this war. The preparations began immediately. Across human space, colonies went dark. Communication channels were sealed. Civilian ships scattered into the deep black, carrying precious cargo children, genetic samples, cultural archives to hidden locations that might survive even if Earth fell. If humanity was going to be erased from history, they would make sure some trace of their existence remained. Meanwhile, the factories worked around the clock. On the colony world of New Helsinki, in the frozen northern hemisphere where humans had built their largest industrial complex. A young engineer named Yuki Tanaka led a team of scientists working on a special project. The official name was Project Phantom, but the workers called it something else: the Ghost Bomb. Tanaka was 28 years old, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. She had graduated at the top of her class from the Mars Technical Institute and had been working on theoretical weapons research when the alien ship appeared over Earth. Within hours of Chancellor Vasquez's refusal, Tanaka had received a message from the military high command. "Whatever you're working on, finish it. We need weapons they've never seen before." The Ghost Bomb was based on a simple idea. The Council's ships used energy shields to protect themselves from conventional weapons. Missiles exploded harmlessly against these shields. Energy beams were absorbed or deflected. Nothing could get through. But Tanaka had discovered something interesting in the classified research files. The shields operated by creating a field of altered space around the ship. Anything that entered this altered space was disrupted and destroyed. But what if something could pass through without entering the altered space at all? Tanaka's solution was a weapon that existed in two places at once. "It's called quantum superposition," she explained to the military officers who visited her laboratory. "We create a warhead that is simultaneously inside and outside the shield bubble. When it collapses into a single state, it does so inside the ship." "Can it work?" asked the ranking officer, a colonel with cybernetic eyes that recorded everything he saw. "I don't know. The theory is sound, but we've never tested it against actual Council technology. We're working blind." "How long until you have a prototype?" 60 cycles. Maybe 50 if nothing goes wrong. You have 40. Make it work." Tanaka and her team worked without rest. They lived in their laboratory, sleeping in shifts, eating nutrient paste because there was no time for real food. Equipment broke and was repaired with whatever was available. Calculations were checked and rechecked until everyone's eyes blurred. On the 38th cycle, they tested the first Ghost Bomb against a simulated Council shield. The weapon flickered, seemed to disappear, and then reappeared inside the protected zone. The explosion destroyed everything within 100 meters. Tanaka watched the test footage with tears in her eyes. It worked. They had created something the Council had never seen before, but one weapon would not win a war. They needed thousands, tens of thousands, and they had barely any time left. "Begin mass production immediately," she ordered. "Pull workers from every other project. We need as many of these as we can build before the fleet arrives." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Scientists developed new propulsion systems that could outmaneuver Council ships. Engineers built missiles that could use asteroid fields as cover. Programmers created viruses that might be able to infect alien computer systems. Every discipline, every specialty, every field of human knowledge was bent toward a single goal: survival. Admiral Chen coordinated all of it from Gibraltar. He slept only when his body absolutely refused to continue functioning, and even then, his dreams were filled with battle plans and casualty projections. He knew the odds. He knew they would probably fail, but he also knew that giving up was not an option. "We're not trying to win," he told his officers during one of their planning sessions. "Not in the traditional sense. We're trying to make them bleed. We're trying to show them that conquering humanity will cost more than we're worth. And we're trying to inspire others." "Others?" Captain Okonjo asked. Chen pulled up a star map showing the territory controlled by the Galactic Sovereignty Council. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, all paying tribute to the Council for 12,000 years. "Every one of these species was conquered," Chen said. "Every one of them was told resistance was impossible. They believed it because they had no example to follow. They had never seen anyone fight back and survive. We're going to give them that example. And if we die, then we die showing the galaxy that tyranny can be challenged. Maybe the next species will do better, or the one after that. But someone, someday, will finish what we started." It was not a comforting thought, but it gave them purpose. On the 45th cycle, the Council's spies began sending back reports. These were observation drones, tiny machines designed to monitor primitive species during the submission period. What they reported confused their handlers. The humans were not preparing to surrender. They were not building refugee ships or negotiating terms. Instead, they were arming themselves. Civilian populations were being trained in combat techniques that seemed designed for ground warfare. Factory output had shifted entirely to military production. And strangest of all, human communications had gone completely silent. The observation drones could detect no radio signals, no quantum communications, nothing. It was as if the humans had simply vanished from the electromagnetic spectrum. High Ambassador Velthorax reviewed these reports with growing concern. "This is unusual," he admitted to his staff. "Most species spend the grace period in denial or negotiation. These humans are acting as if they actually intend to fight. Perhaps they do not understand the scale of what they face," suggested one of his aides. "They are a young species. They may not comprehend that resistance is futile." "Perhaps." Velthorax was not convinced. "Increase surveillance. I want to know exactly what they're building." But the surveillance drones could not get close enough to find out. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had detected them. One by one, the drones went dark. Not destroyed, just disconnected. Their signals blocked by some technology the Council had never encountered. For the first time in his long career, Velthorax felt a flutter of doubt. On Earth, Chancellor Vasquez made a final broadcast to all human colonies. It would be the last open communication before the fleet arrived. After this, everything would go silent, hidden from the enemy's eyes and ears. "My fellow humans," she said, her image appearing on screens across 17 star systems. "In a few cycles, the alien fleet will arrive. They will demand our surrender. They will threaten our destruction. And they will expect us to kneel." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We will not kneel. We will fight with everything we have. Not because we believe we will win, but because we believe that some things are worth fighting for, even when victory seems impossible. Our freedom is one of those things. Our dignity is one of those things. The future of our children is one of those things." Images appeared behind her, pictures of human history. Ancient warriors facing impossible odds. Revolutionaries standing against empires. Ordinary people refusing to accept tyranny. Throughout our history, humans have faced moments like this. Moments when the powerful demanded submission, and the weak were expected to obey. Again and again, we have chosen to resist. And again, we have surprised those who thought we would simply give in. Her voice grew stronger. "The aliens call us primitive. They call us insignificant. They think we will fold at the first show of force. They do not know us. They do not understand that we are the descendants of survivors and fighters and dreamers who refused to accept the world as it was and fought to make it better. When their fleet arrives, they will learn what humanity truly is. They will learn that we do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not go quietly into the darkness. We fight. We resist. We endure." She raised her fist in a gesture that had meant defiance for thousands of years. "Stand strong. Stand together. And never, ever give up. Humanity will survive. Not because the odds are in our favor, but because we refuse to accept any other outcome." The broadcast ended. Across human space, people watched it in silence. Some cried, some cheered. All of them felt something kindle in their chests, a spark of hope that had no logical reason to exist. On Gibraltar, Admiral Chen watched the broadcast with his command staff. When it ended, he turned to face them. "You heard the Chancellor. We fight. Now let's get back to work." The final preparations continued. Ships moved into hidden positions in asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres. Weapons were loaded and tested. Soldiers trained until their bodies screamed for rest and then trained some more. On New Helsinki, Yuki Tanaka supervised the loading of ghost bombs onto transport ships. Thousands of the weapons had been produced, not enough, but more than nothing. She watched each container being secured and thought about her parents back on Earth, her friends on Mars, her brother serving on one of the fleet's destroyers. They might all die. Probably would, in fact, but at least they would die fighting. A young technician approached her, hesitation in his steps. "Dr. Tanaka, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think we have a chance?" "A real chance, I mean." Tanaka considered the question. She was a scientist. She dealt in facts and probabilities, not hopes and dreams. The honest answer was that their chances were very small, almost zero. But she thought about what the Chancellor had said, about what Admiral Chen had said. about all the moments in human history when the odds had been impossible and humanity had won anyway. "I think," she said slowly, "that humans are very bad at knowing when to give up. It's our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. We keep fighting when any sensible species would surrender. And sometimes, just sometimes, that stubborn refusal to accept defeat changes everything." She put her hand on the technician's shoulder. "So yes, I think we have a chance. It's small, and it might not matter in the end. But it's there. And that's enough for me." The technician nodded, something like hope appearing in his eyes. He went back to work. On the 90th cycle, the last day of the grace period, High Ambassador Velthorax sent a final message to Earth. "Your time has expired. The punitive fleet will arrive in one standard cycle. This is your final opportunity to accept the Council's protection. Refuse again, and your species will be erased from existence. The choice is yours." Chancellor Vasquez did not respond with words. Instead, she broadcast a single image across all frequencies. A raised fist, the symbol of human defiance, backed by the flags of every nation and colony. The message was clear. Humanity's answer was still no. In the darkness between stars, the punitive fleet began its final approach. 5,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. Commander Zethral, who had crushed 43 species into submission, stood on his bridge and smiled. This would be easy, he thought. Another primitive species. Another quick victory. Another footnote in history. He was very, very wrong. Hidden in the asteroid fields of human space, Admiral Chen received the sensor reports of the approaching fleet. He felt no fear. He felt no doubt. He felt only the calm certainty of someone who has accepted whatever comes next. "All ships," he announced. "Prepare for battle. Today we find out if humanity deserves to survive. Let's make it a fight they never forget." Across the fleet, men and women checked their weapons, kissed pictures of loved ones, and prepared to meet the enemy. The line in the stars had been drawn. Now humanity would defend it with everything they had. The punitive fleet emerged from fold space like a storm rolling across the sky. Commander Zethral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Divine Authority, and watched his fleet materialize around the human colony of Proxima Centauri. 5,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons already warming, their crews eager for an easy victory. The colony world floated before them like a blue-green jewel, beautiful, fragile, and about to be crushed. "Scan for human vessels," Zethral ordered. His voice was calm, almost bored. He had done this 43 times before. The pattern was always the same. Overwhelming force, a few token shots from the primitive fleet, then surrender or destruction. His sensor officer's response made him pause. "Commander, we are detecting no human ships in the system." "None at all?" "None, sir. The orbital stations are empty. The planet's surface shows minimal activity. It appears the humans have abandoned this colony." Zethral's colors shifted to confusion. This was unexpected. Primitive species usually gathered their forces for a final stand, desperate to protect their worlds even when it was hopeless. They did not simply leave. "Expand the search. They must be hiding somewhere." For the next hour, Council ships scanned every corner of the Proxima system. They found nothing. The asteroid fields were empty. The gas giants held no secret bases. The human colony world had been evacuated. Its population vanished to parts unknown. "Commander," said his tactical officer, "this appears to be a retreat. The humans have accepted that they cannot win and have fled to deeper space. Perhaps they hope to hide until we lose interest. Perhaps." Zethral was not satisfied, but he could find no other explanation. "Very well. Leave a garrison to secure the planet. The main fleet will proceed to the Sol system. If the humans wish to surrender, they will have to come to us." The fleet reformed and prepared to jump to the next system. Zethral returned to his quarters, already composing the victory report he would send to the Council. Another species brought to heel. Another conquest completed. He never saw the first missile coming. The ghost bomb detonated inside the Divine Authority's main reactor. One moment, the massive dreadnought was powering up its fold space drives. The next moment, a sun bloomed in its heart. The explosion tore through 12 decks, killed 3,000 crew members, and sent the ship spinning out of control. Across the fleet, alarms blared as more explosions erupted. 17 ships hit in the first 30 seconds, 35 more in the next minute. The Council's carefully arranged formation dissolved into chaos as vessels tried to evade weapons they could not see or track, and then the humans arrived. They came from everywhere at once, from behind asteroids, from within the atmospheres of gas giants, from beneath the ice of frozen moons where they had hidden their heat signatures for days. 300 ships against 5,000. But they moved like a single creature, coordinated with terrifying precision. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the carrier Defiance and watched his fleet engage the enemy. All wings, follow attack pattern Delta, target their command vessels first. Ghost bombs on my mark. The human ships were smaller and faster than their Council counterparts. They weaved through enemy formations like fish through water, firing at close range before breaking away. Each ship carried a dozen ghost bombs, and each bomb found its target. Council shields, which had stopped every weapon fired at them for millennia, were suddenly useless. Commander Zethral somehow survived the destruction of his flagship. He escaped in a command pod and was picked up by the cruiser Eternal Judgment. From its bridge, he watched in disbelief as his fleet was torn apart. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Their weapons should not be able to penetrate our shields." "They're not penetrating them, Commander," his new tactical officer reported. "The weapons are appearing inside the shields. Our sensors cannot detect them until they have already detonated." "That's impossible. Nothing can bypass our defensive fields. Apparently the humans have found a way." Zethral's colors darkened to a shade that meant fury among his species. He had underestimated these primitives. He would not do so again. "Concentrate our fire on their largest vessels. Overwhelm them with numbers. They cannot have many of these new weapons. Once they run out, we will crush them." The Council ships regrouped and began a coordinated assault. Their superior numbers meant something after all for every human ship. There were more than 15 Council vessels. Even with their new weapons, the humans could not be everywhere at once. The destroyer Yamato was the first human vessel to fall. It was caught between two Council cruisers and torn apart by overlapping energy beams. 83 crew members died in the space of 10 seconds. More human ships followed. The frigates, Courage, and Tomorrow's Hope. The cruiser, Last Stand. One by one, humanity's fleet began to shrink, but they did not retreat. Captain Elena Reyes commanded the destroyer, Defiance II, named after Admiral Chen's flagship, but smaller, faster, more expendable. She was 29 years old and had joined the Navy right out of high school, seeking adventure among the stars. She had found more adventure than she ever wanted. Her ship was badly damaged, engines failing, weapons nearly depleted. A Council dreadnought loomed before her, its weapons charging for the killing shot. There was no escape. Reyes had two choices. She could order her crew to abandon ship and pray the escape pods would be ignored, or she could do something else. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for ramming speed. Anyone who wants to leave, get to the pods now. Anyone who wants to stay." She paused, thinking of her father, who had told her stories about ancient warriors who never gave up. "Anyone who wants to stay. Let's show these bastards how humans die." No one left. The Defiance II accelerated toward the dreadnought, reaching speeds its damaged engines should not have been capable of. The Council ship fired, but the human vessel was already too close. Its captain had miscalculated, assuming the humans would try to escape. The collision tore both ships apart. The dreadnought's reactor breached. The resulting explosion destroyed 4 other Council vessels that were too close. Across the battle, Admiral Chen saw the Defiance II's final act on his tactical display. He closed his eyes for a moment, honoring the sacrifice. Then he opened them and continued the fight. "All ships, update targeting parameters. Focus on vessels in tight formation. Make them afraid to cluster together." The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, 1,200 Council ships had been destroyed or disabled. Another 1,000 were badly damaged. Human losses were 143 ships, nearly half their fleet, but the survivors had accomplished something no species had achieved in 12,000 years. They had hurt the punitive fleet badly. Commander Zethral ordered a retreat. His surviving ships limped into fold space and vanished, leaving behind a field of debris and death. The humans did not pursue. They did not have the ships or the weapons for it, but they had won. Somehow, impossibly, they had won the first battle. On the Defiance, Admiral Chen slumped in his command chair. His body ached from hours of tension and stress. His mind was foggy from lack of sleep. Around him, his crew worked in exhausted silence, repairing what they could, mourning what they had lost. "Sir," Captain Okonjo stood beside him, her face pale. "What do we do now?" Chen thought about it. They had won a battle, but the war was just beginning. The Council would send more ships, larger fleets, more overwhelming force. This victory would only make them angry. "We broadcast everything," he said finally. "Everything. The battle footage, the casualty figures, our tactics, their weaknesses. We send it across every frequency, every channel, every corner of the galaxy that can receive a signal. Sir, that would give the Council information about our capabilities. It would also show every species in the galaxy that the Council can be beaten, that their ships can be destroyed, that their invincible armada is not so invincible after all." Chen smiled grimly. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, Captain. We're fighting for everyone who's ever been told to kneel." The broadcast went out within hours. It showed human ships engaging Council vessels 4 times their size. It showed ghost bombs phasing through shields that had stopped every weapon in the galaxy. It showed the Council fleet retreating, broken and bleeding, from a species they had dismissed as primitives. On 1,000 worlds, members of 1,000 species watched this footage in silence. They had paid tribute to the Council for generations. They had accepted their place in the order of things. They had believed that resistance was impossible. Now they watched a young species prove that belief wrong. Something stirred in hearts that had been quiet for too long. Dangerous thoughts began to form in minds that had learned to stop thinking. The word spread in whispers, in secret, in the dark corners where the Council's eyes did not reach. The humans were fighting back, and they were winning. On Earth, Chancellor Vasquez received news of the victory with mixed emotions. Pride in what their forces had accomplished, grief for the ships and crews they had lost, and fear for what would come next. "They'll send more," she said to General Hardy. "This was just the first wave. They'll send everything they have until we're destroyed. Then we'll fight them again, and again, for as long as we can." "Will it be enough?" Hardy did not answer. He did not need to. They both knew the truth. In the Council's capital, on a world so old that its original name had been forgotten, the ruling body convened an emergency session. The High Council consisted of representatives from the 12 most powerful species beings who had led the galactic sovereignty for millennia. They did not meet often. There was rarely any need. Today, there was need. "The humans have destroyed or damaged over 2,000 of our vessels," reported the Council's military commander. "They possess weapons capable of bypassing our defensive shields. Their tactics are unpredictable and aggressive. They show no signs of surrender or negotiation." "Then destroy them completely," said one Council member. "Send a larger fleet. Burn their worlds to ash. Make an example of them. That is the recommended course of action. However, there are complications." "What complications?" The commander hesitated. "The battle footage has spread across the galaxy. Every species under our protection has seen it. There are reports of unrest on multiple worlds. Tribute shipments have been delayed. In some sectors, there are rumors of organized resistance movements." Silence fell over the chamber. "Are you saying," said another Council member slowly, "that these humans have inspired rebellion?" "I am saying that the image of Council ships being destroyed has had an effect. Species that have been compliant for generations are now asking questions. They want to know why they should continue paying tribute if the Council can be defeated by primitives. Then we must crush the humans quickly and decisively. Show the galaxy that resistance leads only to death. That is my recommendation as well. I am requesting authorization for the second punitive fleet. 15,000 vessels, including 4 planet killers. Enough force to end this rebellion once and for all." The Council voted unanimously in favor. The second fleet would depart within 30 standard cycles. The humans would be erased from existence, and the galaxy would learn once again that the Council was absolute. But in the time between the vote and the fleet's departure, something happened that the Council had not anticipated. The humans kept fighting. On the colony world of New Europa, guerrilla cells attacked a Council observation post and destroyed it completely. On the mining stations of the asteroid belt, workers sabotaged ore shipments destined for Council worlds. In the deep black between stars, human ships hunted Council supply convoys and left nothing behind but wreckage. And everywhere, the broadcasts continued. Messages of defiance, messages of hope, messages that said the same thing in 100 different ways. We are still here. We are still fighting. Join us. Yuki Tanaka, now promoted to Director of Weapons Development, worked around the clock to produce more ghost bombs. Her teams had expanded, drawing scientists from every field who wanted to contribute to the war effort. They developed new variants, smaller bombs for fighters, larger ones for capital ships, specialized versions that could target specific systems. We're running out of the rare materials we need, she reported to Admiral Chen during one of their briefings. At current production rates, we have maybe 60 cycles of supplies left. Then we need to find new sources. What about captured council ships? Their technology is different from ours. We can't use their materials directly. But, she paused, thinking, we might be able to adapt. It would require extensive research, and we'd need access to intact council systems. Then that becomes a priority. Capture missions instead of destruction where possible. It was a small hope, but it was something. Every small hope mattered. On the 65th day after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the second punitive fleet arrived. 15,000 warships spread across human space like a plague. They attacked everywhere at once, overwhelming the scattered human defenses through sheer numbers. Colony after colony went silent. Earth itself came under bombardment for the first time. The third fleet arrived 30 days later. Then the fourth. Humanity was being crushed. The initial victory had bought them time, but time was running out. Yet still they fought. Admiral Chen died at the Battle of the Rings, defending the orbital factories of Saturn. His final order was to keep broadcasting, keep inspiring, keep resisting until the last ship was destroyed. The fleet he had built was scattered and broken, but it was not dead. Captain Okonjo took command of what remained. She was not Chen, did not have his genius or his experience, but she had something else, a complete unwillingness to give up. Under her leadership, the human fleet transformed from a conventional navy into a guerrilla force, striking from shadows and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Chancellor Vasquez continued to broadcast from bunkers that moved constantly to avoid orbital strikes. Her face grew gaunt, her voice hoarse, but her message never wavered. They think they're winning because they've destroyed our cities and killed our people. They don't understand that you cannot kill an idea. You cannot bomb a spirit into submission. As long as one human remains alive and free, humanity survives, and we will be free. We will resist. We will endure. On worlds across the galaxy, other species listened to these broadcasts and felt the stirring of something they had forgotten they possessed. Courage. The Council's victory was taking too long. The tribute species were growing restless. Questions were being asked that had not been asked for thousands of years. And somewhere, in the ruins of human space, a small team of engineers led by Yuki Tanaka was building something new. Something that might change everything. The war for humanity's soul was far from over. It was just beginning. Earth was burning. From orbit, the planet that had given birth to humanity looked like a wounded creature. Dark smoke rising from wounds across its surface. Council bombardment ships hung in stationary positions above major cities, their weapons firing in steady rhythms that had continued for days. New York was gone. Beijing was gone. Lagos, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, all reduced to craters and ash. Chancellor Ilara Vasquez watched the destruction from her bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. The facility had survived so far, protected by mountains and misdirection, but she knew it was only a matter of time. Council sensors would find them eventually. Everything ended eventually, but not yet. How many evacuation ships made it out? She asked, her voice rough from days without proper rest. General Hardy consulted his screens. There were fewer screens now than before, fewer people to monitor them, fewer connections to the outside world. Approximately 4 million civilians reached the deep space evacuation points. Another 12 million are hiding in the underground shelters across the remaining colonies. The rest. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The rest were dead or captured. Billions of people, the majority of humanity, had been killed in the Council's assault. Those who survived did so by hiding in places the Council had not thought to look: abandoned mines, underwater habitats, ships drifting with minimal power in the darkness between stars. It was not victory. It was barely survival. But it was something. And our military forces? Captain Okonjo reports 47 combat-capable vessels remaining. Perhaps 200, if we count the armed civilian ships and converted freighters. They're scattered across human space, operating in small groups, hitting Council supply lines when they can. Not enough to win. Barely enough to keep fighting. Madam Chancellor. Hardy hesitated, choosing his words carefully. There are those who believe we should consider alternative approaches. You mean surrender. I mean negotiation. The Council might accept terms now that they've demonstrated their power. They might let some of us survive if we agree to pay tribute. Vasquez turned to look at him. Her face was thinner than it had been a year ago, when the alien ship first appeared over Geneva. Her hair had gone gray at the temples. Lines of exhaustion were carved around her eyes like scars. But her gaze was still sharp, still defiant. General, do you remember what High Ambassador Velthorax said when he first came here? He said tribute would include 500,000 young people per cycle, taken to fight in the Council's wars. He said we would surrender all weapons research. He said we would give 40% of our resources to our conquerors. I remember. That was before we killed 2,000 of their ships. Before we showed the galaxy that the Council can bleed. Do you think they would offer the same terms now? Or do you think they would punish us for our defiance? Hardy did not answer. If we surrender, Vasquez continued, they will take everything. Not just tribute everything. They will kill everyone who resisted. They will destroy our culture, our history, our identity. In a generation, there will be nothing left of what humanity was. We will be slaves in body and spirit. And if we keep fighting, we'll be dead in body completely. Maybe. Probably. But we'll die as ourselves. We'll die as humans who refuse to give up their freedom. And maybe that death will mean something. Maybe it will inspire others to fight. Maybe it will show the galaxy that tyranny can be challenged. She walked to the window, not a real window, since they were deep underground, but a display screen showing a simulated view of the surface. The image showed snow falling on mountains that had stood for millions of years and would stand for millions more, long after humanity was gone. I won't surrender, General. I can't. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't speak for the millions who are still fighting. They've made their choice. They're resisting at all costs, just like we promised. I won't betray that by giving up now. Hardy nodded slowly. Then we fight until the end. Yes, we fight until the end. Far from Earth, in the scattered remnants of human space, the resistance continued. Captain Sarah Okonjo had never expected to command anything larger than a patrol ship. Now she led what remained of humanity's fleet, a ragged collection of battered vessels crewed by exhausted sailors who had seen too much death and refused to stop fighting. Her flagship was the Defiance, Admiral Chen's old command. It was held together by emergency welds and desperate repairs, its hull scored by energy weapons, its interior crowded with refugees and warriors alike. But it still flew. It still fought. Contact bearing 075, reported her sensor officer. Council supply convoy. 12 freighters with 2 escort cruisers. They're moving toward the Tau Ceti system. Okonjo studied the display. The convoy was carrying materials for the occupation, forces, weapons, food, equipment. Destroying it would hurt the Council's operations, but engaging 2 cruisers was dangerous. Her fleet had 7 ships. Any battle would cost them lives they could not afford to lose. Commander, I know what you're thinking, said Lieutenant Jamal Washington, her tactical officer. We could let this one pass. Wait for an easier target. We could, Okonjo agreed. We've let convoys pass before. Sometimes it's the smart play. But the Council is starting to think we're broken. They're getting careless. Those escort cruisers are running minimal sensor sweeps because they don't expect an attack this deep in their controlled space. She pointed to the display. They're also flying too close together. One good hit could disable both. That's a big risk for one supply convoy. It's not about supplies, it's about fear. Right now, the Council thinks they've won. They think we're just ghosts hiding in the dark, too broken to fight. I want to remind them that we're still here. I want their soldiers to look over their shoulders every time they hear a strange noise. I want their captains to lose sleep wondering if the next system they enter will be their last. Washington nodded slowly. Psychological warfare. The only kind we can afford right now. We can't beat them in a fair fight, so we'll make sure there are no fair fights. We'll hit them, hurt them, and disappear. Over and over. until they learned that occupying human space comes with a cost. The attack was swift and brutal. Okonjo's ships emerged from behind a gas giant's moon, ghost bombs already launching. The Council cruisers detected them too late. The weapons were already inside their shields by the time the alarm sounded. Both cruisers were disabled in the opening seconds. Okonjo's fleet swarmed the freighters, destroying engines and weapon systems rather than the ships themselves. They wanted prisoners, they wanted information, and they wanted the Council to know that human mercy was a gift that could be withdrawn at any time. When it was over, 12 freighters drifted helplessly in space. Their crews were transferred to shuttles and sent toward the nearest Council outpost with a message. Tell your masters that humanity still fights. Tell them we will never stop. Tell them they made a mistake when they demanded our submission. Then Okonjo's fleet vanished into the darkness once more. On the prison moon of Kethval, deep in Council-controlled space, something remarkable was happening. The prison had been built for dangerous criminals, members of species that had caused trouble for the Council over the millennia. Its security was considered unbreakable. No one had ever escaped, until the humans arrived. There were only 300 human prisoners on Kethval, captured soldiers, mostly, along with some civilian leaders from conquered colonies. The Council had intended to use them as examples, proof that resistance led only to suffering. Instead, they became the spark of a revolution. Master Sergeant Victoria Santos had spent 20 years in the military before the war. She had trained hundreds of soldiers, led dozens of missions, survived situations that should have killed her a dozen times over. Being captured was the worst moment of her life. Being imprisoned with 300 other humans was the best thing that could have happened to the resistance. The guards think we're broken, she told her fellow prisoners during one of their secret meetings. They think that being captured, being caged, has destroyed our will to fight. They're wrong. She drew diagrams in the dust of the prison floor, showing guard rotations, weak points in the security system, opportunities for action. This facility holds over 12,000 prisoners from 17 different species. Most of them have been here for years, some for generations. They've forgotten what freedom feels like, but they haven't forgotten how to want it. You're talking about a full-scale uprising, said Commander Eric Nielsen, a naval officer who had been captured at the Battle of Mars. That's insane. Even if we could take the guards, we're on a moon in the middle of Council space. Where would we go? We go wherever we can. Steal ships, free prisoners, spread the fight. Every prisoner here is someone who caused trouble for the Council at some point. Imagine what they could do if they were free and angry and armed. We'll die. Most of us anyway. Santos smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We're going to die here anyway, Commander. The Council doesn't keep prisoners forever. Eventually, they'll decide we're more trouble than we're worth and eliminate us. So we can die in our cells, or we can die fighting. I know which one I prefer. The uprising began on a morning like any other. Guards were following their routine patrols. Prisoners were shuffling to their work assignments. Nothing seemed different. Then 300 humans moved at once. They had spent months preparing, fashioning weapons from scraps, studying guard patterns, making alliances with prisoners from other species who still remembered what freedom meant. When the moment came, they struck with a coordination that caught the Council completely off guard. Santos led the assault on the armory. Nielsen took a team to disable the communications array. Other groups hit power stations, vehicle bays, guard barracks. Within an hour, the humans controlled half the prison. Within 3 hours, they controlled all of it. The guards who surrendered were locked in cells. Those who fought were killed. 12,000 prisoners, members of 17 species, stood in the main courtyard and looked up at the sky, seeing stars for the first time in years. Listen to me, Santos shouted, her voice carrying across the crowd. The humans didn't win this battle alone. We had help from many of you. That means you have a choice now. You can stay here and wait for the Council to retake this facility. Or you can come with us. Where? Asked a prisoner from a species Santos didn't recognize. Everywhere. We steal their ships, we scatter across the galaxy, and we make trouble. We attack supply lines and raid outposts and show the Council that they can't hold this galaxy forever. We keep fighting until we win, or until we're all dead. She raised her fist. Who's with us? The roar that answered her shook the walls. They took everything that could fly. Council patrol ships, cargo transports, even a cruiser that had been docked for repairs. 3,000 former prisoners escaped that day. forming a fleet of their own, a fleet crewed by 17 species who had learned something important. The humans were right. Resistance was possible, and it was spreading. On New Helsinki, in a hidden laboratory beneath miles of ice, Yuki Tanaka worked on the project that might save humanity or destroy the Council trying. She had not slept in 40 hours. The coffee had run out days ago, replaced by stimulant pills that made her hands shake and her heart race. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when they were so close. Run the simulation again. She ordered her remaining team, only 12 scientists now, out of the hundreds she had started with. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what they had built. A quantum virus, designed to infect and corrupt Council computer systems. It would spread through their networks, turning their own weapons against them, creating chaos at the worst possible time. Simulation complete, reported Dr. Yusuf al-Rashid, her second in command. Theoretical infection rate is 94% across connected Council systems. Time to full network corruption, approximately 6 standard hours. What about countermeasures? Their security protocols aren't designed to handle this kind of attack. Their systems are based on the same fundamental architecture they've used for thousands of years. They've never needed to update because they've never faced a threat like this. Tanaka nodded slowly. So if we can get it into their network, we can cripple them, at least temporarily. Their shields would fail. Their weapons would malfunction. Their communications would be disrupted. For a few hours, they would be almost helpless. A few hours might be enough. Tanaka allowed herself a small smile. How do we deploy it? That's the problem. The virus needs to be physically installed into a Council command node. We can't do it remotely, their systems are too isolated. Someone would have to get aboard a Council flagship and upload it directly. A suicide mission? Almost certainly yes. Tanaka thought about all the people who had already died. Admiral Chen, Captain Reyes, millions of soldiers and civilians across human space. They had given their lives for a chance, nothing more, that humanity might survive. I'll do it, she said. Director, you're too valuable. I'm the only one who understands this system well enough to adapt if something goes wrong. And I'm tired, Doctor. I'm tired of sending others to die while I hide in this laboratory. If anyone is going to take this risk, it should be me. She looked at the holographic display, at the beautiful complexity of the weapon she had created. It might work. It might change everything, or it might fail, and she would die alone in the heart of enemy territory. Either way, she would die doing something that mattered. Begin preparations for the mission. And Dr. al-Rashid, if I don't come back, make sure the Resistance knows what we built here. Make sure they keep fighting. Yes, Director. Tanaka smiled again, a real smile this time. She thought about her parents, who had died when the Council bombed Tokyo. She thought about her friends, scattered across the galaxy or dead in its depths. She thought about all the people she had never met who were fighting and dying for the same cause. We are still here, she thought. We are still fighting, and we will never stop. The long night was far from over. But somewhere in the darkness, dawn was beginning to break. In her bunker beneath the Alps, Chancellor Vasquez received a coded message from Tanaka's team. She read it twice, then a third time, making sure she understood. A weapon that could cripple the Council's fleet. A chance to turn the tide. A mission that would probably fail but just might change everything. She began composing orders. The remnants of the fleet would need to coordinate. The resistance cells would need to be ready. Everything would have to come together at exactly the right moment. It was a desperate gamble. But humanity had been making desperate gambles since the beginning. It was what they did best. General Hardy, she said, get me Captain Okonjo on secure channels. It's time to stop hiding. What do you have in mind? Vasquez looked at the message again, at the hope contained in its encrypted words. One final battle. Everything we have, everything we can gather. We're going to make them think they've won, then hit them with something they never expected. And if we're lucky, if the universe has any justice at all, we're going to show the galaxy what humanity is really made of. The reckoning was coming, and humanity would be ready. The galaxy held its breath. Above Earth, the Grand Armada of the Galactic Sovereignty Council assembled in numbers that defied comprehension. 20,000 warships filled the space between the planet and its moon, their hulls blocking out the stars, their weapons charged and ready. 4 planet killers hung at the center of the formation, massive vessels designed for a single purpose: The complete destruction of worlds. High Ambassador Velthorax stood on the bridge of the new divine authority, watching the scarred planet rotate slowly beneath him. Earth had changed since his first visit, where there had been green continents and blue oceans. There were now craters and ash. The humans had fought harder than he had expected. They had caused more damage than he had thought possible. But in the end, the mathematics had proven correct. They were losing. They were almost finished. Status of human forces, he asked his tactical officer. Scattered and broken, High Ambassador. Our sensors detect approximately 60 vessels in the Sol system, hiding in the asteroid belt and behind planetary bodies. They are no threat to our forces, and their ground defenses? Minimal. The orbital bombardment has destroyed most of their surface installations. Resistance fighters remain in underground bunkers, but they cannot affect the outcome of this battle. Velthorax allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The war had been longer and bloodier than anyone had predicted. The Council had lost nearly 5,000 ships, an unprecedented number against a primitive species. But now it was over. The humans would be destroyed, their worlds cleansed, their species erased from history. Order would be restored. Open communications to the planet, he commanded. I will offer them one final chance to surrender. Chancellor Vasquez received the transmission in her bunker. The chamber was crowded now, not just with military officers, but with representatives from every surviving human colony, connected through quantum links that the Council had not managed to destroy. They had gathered to witness whatever came next. Velthorax's image appeared on the main display, his shifting colors radiating contempt. Chancellor Vasquez, I address you for the last time. Your fleet is destroyed. Your colonies are burning. Your people are dying by the millions. The Galactic Sovereignty Council has demonstrated beyond any doubt that resistance is futile. He paused, as if expecting her to speak. She remained silent. I offer you mercy. Surrender now complete and unconditional, and some of your species will be allowed to survive. They will serve the Council, of course. They will pay tribute and provide soldiers for our wars. But they will exist. This is more than you deserve after the trouble you have caused. Still, Vasquez said nothing. If you refuse, the planet killers will be deployed. Every human world will be destroyed. Every ship will be hunted down. Every trace of your species will be erased. In 100 years, no one in this galaxy will remember that humanity ever existed. He leaned forward, his colors darkening. Choose, Chancellor. Slavery or extinction. You have 1 hour to decide. The transmission ended. In the bunker, everyone turned to look at Vasquez. She stood alone in the center of the chamber, her face calm, her hands steady at her sides. She looked tired, more tired than any of them had ever seen her, but there was something else in her eyes, something that might have been hope. Madam Chancellor, said General Hardy softly. What do we do? Vasquez smiled. We wait 45 minutes. Then we spring the trap. Yuki Tanaka was inside the Grand Armada. She had come aboard a Council supply ship 3 days earlier, hidden in a cargo container marked for disposal. For 72 hours, she had moved through the lower decks of Council vessels, avoiding patrols, hacking security systems, working her way toward her target, the central command node of the flagship Divine Authority. Now she stood in a maintenance corridor, 1 level below the bridge, with the quantum virus loaded in a device the size of her fist. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. She knew she was probably going to die in the next few minutes, but that was okay. She had made peace with death a long time ago. The command node was protected by 6 guards and 3 layers of security doors. Tanaka had managed to bypass 2 of the doors remotely. The third required physical access, a biometric scan that only Council officers could pass. She needed a Council officer, and she knew exactly where to find one. The guard patrol came around the corner exactly on schedule. 4 soldiers, standard weapons, standard formation. They did not expect trouble. No one had ever penetrated this deep into a Council flagship before. Tanaka stepped out of the shadows and threw a small device at their feet. The flashbang grenade detonated with a blinding light and a deafening roar. 3 guards went down immediately. The 4th, a junior officer, based on his uniform, stumbled backward, reaching for his weapon. Tanaka was faster. She hit him with a neural disruptor before he could aim. He collapsed, conscious but paralyzed from the neck down. Sorry about this, she said, dragging him toward the security door. I need your eye and your hand. I'll leave them attached if you cooperate. The officer's colors shifted in a pattern she had learned meant terror. Good. Terrified people were cooperative people. The biometric scan accepted his credentials. The door opened. Tanaka was in. The command node was a masterpiece of council engineering, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and quantum computers that processed information from across the armada. From here, a single order could reach every ship in the fleet. From here, shields could be raised or lowered. Weapons could be fired or silenced. Communications could be sent or blocked. From here, Tanaka could destroy everything. She moved quickly, uploading the virus into the primary system. The Council's computers had never seen anything like it. They had no defenses, no protocols, no way to fight back. The virus spread through the network like fire through dry grass, infecting one system after another. Alarms began to blare. Guards were coming. Tanaka had maybe 2 minutes before they reached her. She kept working. On the bridge of the Divine Authority, Velthorax's hour of waiting was interrupted by screaming alarms. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Unknown intrusion in the command systems, High Ambassador. Something is corrupting our networks." Velthorax's colors shifted to pure rage. "Stop it. Isolate the affected systems. We can't. It's spreading too fast. We're losing control of weapons systems, shield generators, navigation computers." The officer stopped, staring at his display in horror. "High Ambassador, we're losing control of everything." Across the Grand Armada, ships began to go dark. Weapons that had been charging for the final assault shut down. Shields that had deflected every human attack simply vanished. Communication channels dissolved into static. 20,000 warships, the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, became 20,000 helpless targets. And then the humans arrived. They came from every direction at once. Not 60 ships, 347, gathered from every corner of human space in secret, hidden behind asteroids and moons until this exact moment. Captain Sarah Okonjo led them from the bridge of the Defiance, her voice carrying across every human frequency. "All ships, weapons free. Hit them while they're blind. Today we fight for everyone who ever said no to tyranny. Today we fight for Earth." But the humans were not alone. More ships emerged from fold spaceships that did not belong to humanity. 3,000 vessels crewed by the prisoners who had escaped from Kethval, joined by others who had heard humanity's broadcasts and decided to take a chance. They were Torvalians and Kethmari and 17 other species whose names meant nothing to the Council but everything to the history of this moment. "Human fleet, this is General Santos of the Free Alliance," crackled a voice across the communication channels. The galaxy decided to return the favor. "Where do you need us?" Okonjo's voice was thick with emotion. "General, hit the planet killers. We can't let them destroy Earth." "With pleasure. Free Alliance ships, target the planet killers. Show them what happens to bullies." The battle was pure chaos. Council ships tried to fight back, but their systems were corrupted, their weapons misfiring or not firing at all. Human and allied ships swarmed through their formations, firing at point-blank range, destroying vessel after vessel. The Grand Armada that had seemed so invincible an hour ago was now a scattered, burning ruin. On the Divine Authority, Velthorax watched his fleet die. His colors cycled through patterns of rage, despair, and something he had never felt before: fear. "Emergency fold space jump," he screamed. "Get us out of here. Navigation systems are down, High Ambassador. We can't." A ghost bomb detonated in the engineering section. The ship shuddered, then began to break apart. Velthorax ran for the escape pods. Behind him, his flagship, the symbol of Council power, split in two and began falling toward Earth. He made it to a pod just before the section collapsed. As he rocketed away from the dying ship, he watched the battle continue, watched the impossible happening before his eyes. The humans were winning. The primitives who should have surrendered at the first show of force were destroying the Council's greatest fleet. A small corvette intercepted his pod. The name on its hull was painted in human script: Grandmother's Promise. The human captain who appeared on his screen was young, barely past what Council records indicated was human adolescence. She smiled at him, and it was not a kind smile. "High Ambassador Velthorax. I'm Captain Maria Vasquez, yeah. Like the Chancellor. She's my aunt. You destroyed my parents' home and killed 2 of my cousins. I've been looking forward to meeting you." Velthorax's colors shifted to pure confusion. "This is impossible. You were nothing. A minor species. How did you do this?" Captain Vasquez laughed. It was a sound full of grief and anger and savage satisfaction. You want to know how? I'll tell you. You asked for tribute. You demanded that we surrender our freedom, our children, our future. And we said no, not because we thought we could win, but because we decided that some things are worth fighting for even when you can't win. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. We fought with everything we had. We sacrificed millions of lives. We inspired billions of others to join us. And when it seemed like we were beaten, we found a way to keep going anyway. That's what humans do, Ambassador. We don't give up. We don't accept defeat. We fight until the end, and then we fight a little longer. But the cost, yes, the cost. You killed so many of us, destroyed so much. We'll spend generations rebuilding what you took from us. Her voice hardened. But we survived. We're still here. And you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that the primitives beat you. That everything you believed about the universe was wrong. That resistance is not futile after all. She gave an order to her crew, and the pod's engines shut down. We're taking you to Earth, Ambassador. You'll stand trial for your crimes against humanity, and when you're sentenced, and you will be, you'll live the rest of your life as a prisoner of the species you tried to enslave. She smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. Welcome to humanity's galaxy. I hope you enjoy your stay. The battle ended 3 hours later. Of the 20,000 ships in the Grand Armada, fewer than 2,000 escaped. The rest were destroyed, disabled, or captured. The planet killers were all destroyed, their crews choosing death over surrender. Earth survived. Damaged, scarred, forever changed but alive. The bunker in the Swiss Alps emerged into sunlight for the first time in months, and Chancellor Vasquez looked up at a sky that was finally free of enemy ships. The war was not completely over. Council forces remained in distant parts of human space. Resistance would continue. Battles would still be fought. But the tide had turned. The galaxy had seen what happened when one species refused to kneel, and everywhere, on 1,000 worlds, other species were asking themselves, if the humans could do it, why not us? The Galactic Sovereignty Council dissolved within 10 years. Without their fleet, without their reputation for invincibility, they had nothing to hold their tribute species in place. One by one, worlds declared independence. New alliances formed. A different kind of order emerged, one based on cooperation rather than conquest. They called it the Free Systems Alliance. On Earth, they built a memorial to the fallen. It stretched across what had once been the Swiss Alps, a wall of names that took 3 days to walk from beginning to end. Every human who had died fighting was listed there. Every ally who had joined the cause. Every sacrifice that had made victory possible. At the center of the memorial stood a statue. Chancellor Vasquez, Admiral Chen, Captain Okonjo, and Director Tanaka, the 4 leaders who had shaped humanity's resistance. They stood together, their hands raised not in triumph but in welcome, inviting the galaxy to join them in freedom. Yuki Tanaka survived. She escaped the divine authority moments before it exploded, rescued by a human strike team that had fought their way to the command node. She spent the rest of her life teaching others what she had learned, that science and courage, combined, could overcome any obstacle. Captain Okonjo became the first fleet admiral of the Free Systems Alliance, commanding a navy crewed by 100 species. She never forgot that the alliance was built on human stubbornness and alien hope, and she made sure that combination remained at the heart of everything they did. Chancellor Vasquez served 3 more terms before retiring to a small village in the rebuilt Swiss countryside. She spent her final years writing a history of the war, not for the glory, but for the lessons. She wanted future generations to understand what they had fought for and why. The inscription on her grave, the same inscription carved on the central memorial, became humanity's anthem across the stars. We came from a world that tried to break us 1,000 times. We spread across the stars and found an empire that demanded we kneel. We answered the only way we knew how, together, unbowed, and free. They asked for tribute. We gave them a lesson instead. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never assume silence means surrender. And never, ever, threaten someone's home. Humanity never sought to conquer the galaxy. They simply refused to let the galaxy conquer them. And in the end, that made all the difference. The stars belonged to everyone now. The darkness between them was filled with ships and dreams, and the endless possibility of a universe where freedom was not a gift to be granted, but a right to be defended. Somewhere in that vast expanse, on a small blue world that had nearly been destroyed and had survived anyway, children looked up at the night sky and saw not the cold emptiness of space, but the promise of adventures yet to come. The war for humanity's soul was over. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never be the same.